Hey, it's shortcut time and starting. Today we're taking a look at parenting and how it makes your life easier, which if any of you have kids you'll know is a really ironic statement. We're also going to be taking a look at null objects. I'm trying to come up with some jokes about nulls, but they feel undefined. Parenting in After Effects terms means controlling one layer from another. Let me show you what I mean. In this comp I've got a red circle and a blue square. I've set some keyframes for my red circle but nothing for the blue square. If you're not sure how I got to this point, check out Start and Keyframes. Now, let's suppose I want to have the blue square follow the red circle. I could copy and paste the position keyframes from one layer to another, but if I then make a change I'd have to copy them again. So instead, using this drop down, I can select the red circle layer. And there we go, the blue circle will stay linked. I could have used the pick whip instead of the drop down, which is sometimes easier to see what's going on. While I've linked the blue square, it's not as if I've locked it, so that means I can still set the layer's own position. Making sure the blue square is selected, tap P on the keyboard to expose the position properties. Set a keyframe for the start of the comp. Let's drag it back so that if this was a race, blue is in second place. Now, move forward to red's second keyframe and drag blue in front of red. Now I'm clicking and dragging on the X coordinate in the timeline. I just find this easier to move in one dimension. I could have dragged the layer and held shift to drag in one direction only and achieved the same thing. If we play this back now, you can see that blue is slowly overtaking red. But watch what happens when I set blue's parent drop down to none. Blue only moves the amount I've keyframed, not the amount plus red's movement. I'd also like you to take a close look at the position properties of the blue square layer. Right now it's saying that the blue square is 300 plus pixels from the left and about the same from the top of the comp. Watch what happens if I move to reparent the blue square. The numbers jump massively. That's because it's now adopting the red circle's coordinate system. Red circle is actually built on a solid layer 1920 by 1080 pixels. Blue square's new position is based on this solid as if it were a comp. Let me demonstrate. In this comp I've copied the layers but set the comp size to be 3000 by 2000 pixels wide. I've taken off the keyframes and set blue square to be a position 960 by 540 of red solid. Layers are measured from their anchor points. Blue squares happens to be in the center of the square mask. If I set blue square's coordinates to 0, 0, it jumps to the top left corner of the red circle's layer. Does that make sense? Does it matter? Not really for now. I'll circle back to this in a couple of moments though when we get talking about null objects. Switching comps to this one, suppose I want to have blue triangle move in a circle or orbit red square. If you remember from the keyframes video, I could set some keyframes and then use Bezier handles and I could spend ages getting it close to a circle. Or I could use parenting. Let's set blue triangle as a child of red square. Then select red square and tap R to expose the rotation controls. Set a keyframe for rotation, move forward a few seconds and set a new keyframe, adding a 1 to the first unit. This means After Effects will rotate the layer a full rotation, 360 degrees. Now when we play that back, we can see that the blue triangle describes a perfect circle. And if we want to spiral it down, let's set keyframes for blue's position to do just that. So we've just created a really complex movement using 2 sets of keyframes and very little effort. But the blue triangle does go off screen. I could make everything smaller just by adjusting red square's scale. I can adjust all the transformation properties and have them affect the child layers, with one exception, opacity, which is handy at times because I can turn off red square if I need to. Remember how my father appeared in his amazing walk cycle? Please note the irony. This is where parenting can really help. Here's a penguin figure, and I want him to bounce from the left side of the screen to the right. I could set separate keyframes every few frames, but it's a bit tedious. And because he's moving, I want him to bounce up and down, so it's a lot tedious. Instead, I'll animate him bouncing up and down in place, copy the keyframes a bunch of times, and then I'll parent him to a new layer and move that. So I'll set an initial keyframe, and then I'll use the page down key 4 times to move 4 frames forward and set a new identical keyframe. I'll then use the page up key to move 2 frames back and move the penguin up a little. I'll then highlight and copy and paste a bunch. Now there's a shortcut to doing this too, but we'll cover that in a later video. For now, this will do. Now, let's create a new layer, but I don't intend for this layer to ever be seen. So let's use one that never will. A null object. Go to Layer, New, Null Object. And there we go. A null object has a lot of the same properties of a solid. It's 100 pixels square and invisible. It doesn't matter if I adjust the opacity, there's nothing to show. So let's set a couple of position keyframes, and now let's parent our penguin to it. Great! And because I've used a null for the larger position, I can change the penguin's route without having to redo a bunch of keyframes. Oh, and take a look at the position values of the penguin. A null's anchor point is positioned in its top left corner, so all its position values of its children start from 0. On this comp you can see more clearly what I'm talking about. Using a null object lets me measure the distances in pixels easily in After Effects. Now, when null objects really become powerful is when used with tracking. I'm not going to get into that fully in this video, but here's a shot of a dinosaur sculpture my good friend Jeff Smith shot. I've tracked its eye and then applied that tracking data for position, scale and rotation to a null object. Now the null is all over the place, it's rotated so much it's backwards. But that doesn't matter because I haven't applied my text layer yet. Once I do, sure, its rotation values ramp up, but that's only a number relative to the null, not the comp. Of course, I could choose not to have the text rotate at all, and there's several different ways to do that, but the easiest is to delete the null's rotation value. Last bit of parenting to mention, if I hold down Shift while using the pick whip to link layers, my child layer will jump to the position of the parent. Not sure if I've ever used this, but it exists as a thing. And that's it for parenting class. Next time we're going to take a look at tracking in a bit more detail, which might be fun, might be dull, who knows. Really depends on how many memes I can find.